Today we're going to show you how to transform a tiny room into a cinematic shot like this. Now you'll be surprised, we started with this. And we're not going to use any lighting, we'll just use natural light, one camera, and one boring room. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to help you transform an extra space you might have in your house, maybe it's your bedroom, into a YouTube studio. And we're not going to use any fancy equipment. We're going to move all of our equipment out of the room. We actually already have moved all our equipment out of the room. We're just going to use what the room naturally gives us and get a cinematic shot. Let me give you a little bit of context on this room. This is a spare room we have in our studio. It's less than ideal. There's about 10 feet across. The walls are diagonal, so at the back there's maybe 8 feet. There's maybe about 15 feet of depth, which is nice, but it's certainly less than ideal. Okay, let's get to work. So there's two principles that we need to follow when we try to figure out where to place our camera. Now, the first thing you need to contend with when you're shooting in a room like this is the really bad overhead lights. Now, these lights give harsh and weird shadows. So the recommendation is always turn off your artificial lighting and look for big light sources of natural light. Hey, before we go any further, help this video reach other creators by hitting the like and subscribe button. So let's do that. Let's turn off all our lights and open up our windows. Now this is much better. We've got our natural light coming in and filling my face. We also have a window on the far side that's slightly opened or partially open. That's just raising up the shadow side of my face a little bit. In the background, we've again partially opened the windows just to raise the level of the overall room. And I'm really liking how this looks. Now we have 4 windows, which essentially gives us 4 possible places to place our camera. But which one do we pick? And that's where the second principle comes in. Find depth in your room. Now to this date, Peter McKinnon has the gold standard for a really good talking head. And he always says whenever you walk into a room, you need to try and figure out how to maximize the depth of that room.
The way so that I could have used the depth of the room, not use the shortest length of the room, but the longest length of the room and key the lights that way.
Now in this room, it's pretty obvious. Since the walls are so close, we can't place the camera on either of these walls. But because we do have some depth, we can place the camera either on this wall or the far side wall. But he also says that you should try and place your camera in the corners of rooms. That's because the diagonal distance is always bigger than the horizontal distance. Now we can start with this one because we're already here. Now this is the spot that I always thought we would shoot our talking head. The biggest problem being on that far wall, there used to be switches and cables that were running all over the place. And that didn't make for a good frame. Now we've ever since removed that cabling just to make this corner also a viable location. And you'll see us using it in the future. But for right now, let's assume those cables are on the wall and we can't use it. Let's jump over to our second spot. In this corner, let's first talk about what works. I really like the contrast that's created between the black wall and the white wall. That's always visually interesting. You also have an open door. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but that open door helps you expand the room and create more depth in the room. You can always turn a light on in that room and create an interesting background. The main reason it doesn't work is because of the TV. You can always put a video loop on the TV, but that's one more thing you have to think about every time you shoot. And that loop can stop working, the TV can time out. It's a lot of variables that you don't want to have to deal with. So with that said, this corner isn't great. Now for all the reasons our second frame didn't work, this frame also doesn't work. You still see the TV in the background and you see the back of the couch, which is not great. You also have a big blank wall to deal with, not ideal. And you have large open windows. Now windows are great for lighting the face of your subject, but whenever your windows are in the background, that is a problem. Because these talking heads take a lot of time, you don't want the background changing on you. You want the audience to feel like it's a familiar place, and as an editor, you want to have the flexibility to move clips around without your audience noticing that it's later in the day. So if you've seen our other videos, then you've seen this coming. This is the best spot in the room. Background's interesting with lots of frames and the bar counter. There's lots of depth which meets our criteria and good light on my face. The TV is also partially obscured, which is a great thing. We'd never have to worry about putting anything on it. Our next goal would be to place a table and chairs and see what that frame looks like when it's locked down on a tripod. Okay, and this is our final frame. Now I'm pretty happy with how this looks. We've got good light coming in, we've got good depth. The only thing I don't like is that this side of my face is a little bit darker than I'd like, but this is the light we're getting, so I'll need to contend with that. And this is what it looks like on a phone. Now the lens is a little bit different, so ideally we'd want to push back a little further. We can't do that right now because the camera starts coming into shot, but you can see that just with your phone and an open window, you can get a pretty good looking shot. The next step would be to set dress the space. Now you can really elevate a frame by just cleaning up a little bit and adding a few props. So let's do that right now. So we've just made a few small changes. We've cleaned up the space, we've added a pillow onto the couch, we've added a gimbal and a camera as a prop, and we've turned on the top spotlight just to light up that wall a little bit. Now we had to record this episode a few times. We had a few settings wrong, and then we had a few technical issues. It took almost half a day to make. So if you like this kind of content, hit that subscribe button. So it tells us that we're doing something right. And that's the end of this video. Now in the next video, we're going to elevate this set even further by bringing in video lights. And we'll show you exactly what lights you need. But before we go there, you need to tell us if everything in this video was clear. Did you try this out? How did it go? What did we miss?